Again, subscribe today to the show. Let us know. We'll also put you in the penalty box. Several things to get to before we hear Tony Elliott, so I want to make sure we squeeze these in. Philip says, just how much better could Clemson be if they really used a transfer portal like some of those other schools do? Man, Philip, that's a great question because there's pluses and minuses in my opinion. I'd love to have a lengthier conversation on this front because you could talk about the impact that maybe bringing guys in from the portal has on the community that you've established and sort of the culture that you've built in your program. So that is a great question, though, Philip. Love it, man. Come back, hang with us, send us some more questions because that's an in-depth one. Matter of fact, if I can bookmark this in my brain, I'll jump back on that one tomorrow because that is intriguing, especially given the fact, look, Ches Malusi just named the number 1 running back at Wisconsin. Former Clemson guy, going to be the starter at Wisconsin. DeMarcus Bowman, what if he has a big year at Florida? Former 5-star who was committed to Clemson, was here for about a bag of like a snack pack, and then left last year. That's a good question. All right, so Tony Elliott was asked earlier today about going up against, speaking of the running game, going up against this tough Georgia defensive front that doesn't give up a ton of yardage. Here's what Tony Elliott had to say about going up against those guys in the season opener.
The biggest thing is you got to keep them honest, and you got to set the tempo in the trenches. And so when we're at our best is when we're balanced and we can run the football. But as you said, number 1 rush defense last 2 years, they're built to stop the run. They support the run from the secondary level very, very well. But you're gonna have to generate run game. And we saw that last year when we played up at Notre Dame. We didn't have enough run game to keep them honest, so you become one-dimensional. So I think you're not necessarily going to put a statistical number on it, but it's got to be effective. If you can be effective, then it sets up some of your other things. And understanding too that it may not just be a traditional handoff that you count as run game. You may have to use some of your outlet screens, your RPO game to supplement in the run game. But I'm excited for the guys because I think up front they understand that they've been challenged every day since the last performance that they had, and rightfully so. We didn't have our best against Ohio State, but we understand in order to win, you got to win in the trenches on both sides. And so these guys have taken that challenge. They've been really, really tested this fall camp with the scheme and the personnel on our practice field. So we're excited to have an opportunity to play somebody else.
Again, Tony Elliott talking about this Clemson Tiger running game, and then he was also asked about the starting and the personnel and trying to figure out who's going to be the guy. I just mentioned Malusi being named the guy at Wisconsin, former Clemson running back. DeMarcus Bowman, his role and impact at Florida. Here's what Elliott had to say about the starting running back for your Tigers as we are less than a week away from kickoff.
Good question, man. We're trying to figure that out. You see, I was a few minutes late. We're still in there having some meetings with Coach Sweeney talking about personnel. But it's been competitive, just like we talked about last spring. Probably the most competitive position has been the running back position. So I'm excited to see how that unfolds. And same thing up front. We've had some to replace the center, so we've been working some different guys at center, and trying to find, some guys that can go inside. If you move like a Bockhorst per se, if you move him to center, who's going to be that next guard? Okay. If Bockhorst is not the guy at center, then who's going to be the center? So we have a ton of competition, going into this last week, and we may not know until, 7, what time we play, 7:30. We may not know who's running out there first, but it's a good thing because it's competitive. And it keeps those guys hungry, and then they're going to be grateful and appreciative of their opportunities when they do get them. Game day.
So not just talking about the running back situation, also the offensive line and figuring out the personnel and trying to make that work and the center and I mean, it's wild. It's wild because you've I think for years with Tony Elliott, he's been fortunate that you've kind of known, especially in the backfield, who's going to be the guy out of the gates, but still, trying to figure that out. Now, the other thing, and we'll get to here, the final thing, I guess, if we can squeeze it in, just Tony Elliott talking about the health of the running back situation and how things are going as far as those guys health-wise.
Yeah, it's been actually knock on wood because that's a position right there. Anytime you go into camp, those guys get hit a lot. They do a lot of things in the protection standpoint, but so far we've been pretty healthy at the running back position.
So the Tigers have been pretty healthy, according to Tony Elliott, at the running back position. And again, all of that just getting set for their matchup against the Georgia Bulldogs coming up on Saturday. Checking the clock, I believe, mathematically speaking, I can squeeze this one in. Tony Elliott was asked about just sort of the depth on the offensive front and working all that out. Here's what he had to say.
Well, I think for us, we learned last year that you got to have depth. And we didn't have any depth on the offensive line. And so we were counting on 5 guys. So we feel better about our situation going into it. We feel, good with about 9 guys that we feel like right now, could go play winning football for us. So you would like to be set in place, going into the first game, but we don't see it as a negative. We got a week. All those guys have gotten reps. And for us, it's really just keeping the competition level up. And as we finish the final touches on the game plan this week, then we'll know once we get to the end of the week who needs to be the first 5 guys to run out there.
Tony Elliott talking about Clemson's offensive line. Again, thank you for everybody who stopped by and hung out with us today. You know how much we appreciate it. Head over to our YouTube channel right now. Hit subscribe. I mean, if you're watching our YouTube channel right now, there's probably something about to pop up over here on the sides, but again, it is an exciting time, I think, for everybody as the college football campaign is getting closer and closer, and matchups kicking off. I think some games on Wednesday, but really Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's going to be a long weekend, lots of football.